Chapter 206, The Genius Female Hacker. Zhang Yi lowered his eyelids upon hearing this. Yang Xia hadn't been with him for very long, and from the very beginning, she had never given up on leaving this place. He just didn't expect this day to come so quickly. But, so be it. Zhang Yi felt a little reluctant, but he wasn't overly concerned. Nothing lasts forever, and life must go on even if someone is missing. Are they coming to take you away? Zhang Yi asked. Yang Xia hurriedly waved her hands. No, it's not like that. Actually. She found it difficult to speak, her small feet curled up together in embarrassment. Zhang Yi felt a little strange. What do you mean? I don't really understand. Your family found you, and they don't want to take you away? Yang Xia smiled bitterly. It's true that my family contacted me. But they don't want to take me away. It's just that. She struggled for a moment before looking at Zhang Yi with teary eyes and begging, she's in danger and wants me to save her. Her pleading look was so pitiful that he wanted to hold her in his arms and squeeze her tightly. Zhang Yi raised his eyebrows and finally understood why she had kept it a secret from him and secretly discussed it with Zhou Qi. If it was her family, then they were naturally Zhou Qi's relatives. Save someone? With just the two of them, how could they save anyone? In the end, wouldn't it all fall on his head? Zhang Yi understood everything and couldn't help but smile mockingly. Oh, I see. What kind of joke was this? He was supposed to save someone who had nothing to do with him. Did they think he was the Virgin Mary? Seeing that the truth had been revealed, Yang Xia no longer cared about her dignity. She climbed out of bed, hugged Zhang Yi's arm tightly, and begged, Zhang Yi, please help me this once. I've finally found a family member, and I don't want to lose her. The fragrance of her body filled Zhang Yi's nose, refreshing his mind. In order to get Zhang Yi to help her, she threw herself at him, her curvaceous body pressed tightly against him. This is called the beauty trap. Not only Yang Xia, but even Zhou Qi came over for that person. Zhang Yi, I know this has nothing to do with you. But she's our family. If we let her die right in front of our eyes, we'll feel guilty for the rest of our lives. Zhang Yi smiled and looked at them. You want me to save her? Don't you know what the situation is outside right now? My information has been exposed. I don't know how many people are coveting the supplies in my hands in this super shelter. Leaving here means going out there and risking our lives. Would I do that for a stranger? Zhang Yi didn't even have to think about it and refused categorically. The beauty trap didn't work on him either. Don't think that just because they had been together for a while, they could influence Zhang Yi's judgment. Seeing Zhang Yi's decisive refusal, Yang Xia and Zhou Qi also became anxious. This was the last hope to save that person. Zhang Yi, I can't just stand by and watch her die. As long as you agree to save her, then whatever you ask of me in the future, I will fulfill your every request. Yang Xia was so desperate to save her that she was willing to give up even her last line of defense. Seeing this, Zhou Qi bit her lip, leaned close to Zhang Yi's ear, and whispered a few words. Zhang Yi's eyes immediately lit up. Are you serious? Zhou Qi had only recently lost her virginity, and she was originally too shy to try many techniques. But just now, she had taken the initiative to suggest some bold attempts, and Zhang Yi would be lying if he said he wasn't tempted. Then do you agree? The two girls looked at Zhang Yi expectantly. Zhang Yi took a deep breath, smiled slightly, and was about to refuse. At this moment, Yang Xia said, Xinxin's legs have always been bad. It's so cold outside, she won't be able to hold out for long. When I think of that, my heart aches. Zhang Yi suddenly stopped talking. Huh? Xinxin? He remembered that name. Yang Xia had mentioned before that she had a cousin named Yang Xinxin. This girl was studying at a prestigious school in Tianhai City. She was 18 years old, very beautiful, and a top-level hacker. 18 years old, beautiful, and a top-level hacker. He entered the above keywords into a search engine and the result was, perfect. Zhang Yi's heart raced. His biggest concern right now was the internet. But finding a reliable computer expert at a time like this was not easy. The key was that they had to be reliable. If someone untrustworthy entered the shelter, he would never be able to rest easy. Otherwise, he would have asked Lu Fengda, the computer expert, to come over. Yang Xinxin was Yang Xia's cousin and Zhou Keir's cousin, so he could definitely trust her. 18 years old, paralyzed in both legs, and beautiful, she completely met the 3 necessary conditions of being beautiful, strong, and tragic. Zhang Yi immediately swallowed the words he had originally wanted to say. He suddenly took Yang Xia and Zhou Keir's hands in his, looked at them affectionately, sighed and said, "Okay, don't say anything else. Since she is your sister, she is also my sister. If she is in danger, how can I just stand by and watch?" Yang Xia and Zhou Keir's faces showed extreme surprise. Zhou Keir, in particular, couldn't believe that these words could come out of Zhang Yi's mouth. In her impression, Zhang Yi was a refined egoist who always put himself first. But now that Zhang Yi had agreed, she was naturally overjoyed. Zhou Keir thought sweetly, Zhang Yi must be doing this for me. Sure enough, he loves me. Yang Xia's eyes filled with tears of excitement. Zhang Yi, thank you so much. Zhang Yi smiled and wiped the tears from the corners of her eyes, saying to the 2 women, "What, in your eyes, am I, Zhang Yi, a profit-seeking person who doesn't care about human feelings? You're wrong. My indifference is only a facade for others, but I cherish the people around me very much." He pulled the 2 women's hands up and kissed them lightly. The 2 women looked shy, and their opinion of Zhang Yi had changed greatly. Zhou Keir fell even deeper, and as for Yang Xia, she was also deeply moved by him. The 2 women glanced at each other, then tacitly pushed Zhang Yi onto the bed. Yang Xia bit her lip lightly, her eyes full of emotion. "Zhang Yi, let us reward you tonight." As a woman, this was the only way she could think of to repay him. Zhang Yi raised his eyebrows. "Oh? Just once? Are you underestimating me? How many times depends on your skills." Yang Xia said, biting her cherry lips. Chapter 207, Monster. Zhang Yi decided to go rescue Yang Xinxin. After all, the biggest problem for the shelter right now was network security. A house that was mostly automated would pose an unimaginable threat to Zhang Yi if it were hacked. He considered this decision very carefully and didn't make it on a whim. But before going, he had to make a detailed plan and gather information. After a restless night, Zhang Yi called Yang Xia and Zhou Keir the next day to discuss the rescue plan. "Tell me what the situation is over there," Zhang Yi said cautiously to the 2 of them. Zhou Keir looked at Yang Xia. "You tell him." After all, Yang Xia was Yang Xinxin's cousin and closer to her, so she knew more than Zhou Keir. Yang Xia sat up straight and said seriously, "Xinxin is trapped in Tianqing College. Tianqing College is the leading private school in Tianhai City. It is not open to the public, so ordinary people don't know much about it. This school is integrated from kindergarten to university and only educates the children of the powerful and wealthy, as well as a very small number of geniuses. After graduating, everyone inside is a promising candidate for a career in politics or business." Zhang Yi nodded, indicating that he was familiar with this. Around 2050, education had become polarized. The education received by ordinary people, the elite class, and the privileged class were completely separate. Whether it was schools, teaching staff, or career advancement opportunities after graduation, there was no overlap whatsoever. This gave rise to monopolistic educational institutions, namely elite schools. Academic qualifications were still somewhat useful to ordinary people, but they had lost their meaning for the true upper class. If she were in school, how could a girl with 2 disabled legs have survived until now? This was Zhang Yi's question. Schools are densely populated and usually don't have many supplies. If people fought each other for food, they might have a chance of surviving. But Yang Xinxin had been suffering from polio since childhood. Yang Xia said, "Tianqing College has its own special food supply channels, and the warehouse is well stocked with food. Xinxin and the others hid in the school cafeteria, which is why they didn't starve to death." Zhang Yi nodded. That made sense. But I don't understand. If she was able to contact the outside world, why didn't she contact you before and wait until now? Zhang Yi found this very strange. When people are in dire straits, they will do everything they can to survive. They won't let anyone who can help them slip away. Why did she wait until the end of the world was almost 2 months away before thinking of contacting the outside world? Yang Xia was also stumped by this question. Her expression was a little hesitant, and her eyes flashed with doubt. At that time, I was so worried that I didn't have time to ask her. She took out her cell phone and said, "Let me call her now." Zhang Yi nodded and watched her quietly. Yang Xia turned on the speaker in front of Zhang Yi and dialed the number. Beep. 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 Sorry, the number you have dialed is temporarily unavailable. Please try again later. Yang Xia looked a little embarrassed. She said to Zhang Yi, "I wanted to contact her again, but it keeps saying that the number is unavailable." Zhou Qi covered her mouth and laughed sarcastically. "Don't think too much of it. Maybe she thought you were dead at first, that's why she didn't call you." "No, that's not it." Yang Xia glared at her angrily. Zhang Yi rubbed the back of his left hand with his right palm and suddenly asked, "How far is Tianqing College from here?" Yang Xia thought for a moment and replied, "About 10 kilometers. About?" Zhang Yi smiled helplessly. This woman's sense of distance left him at a loss for words. He took out his cell phone and started searching on the map. Although the signal was poor and there were problems with the satellite positioning, he could still use the previous map to search for the distance. After searching for a while, Zhang Yi found the answer. Tianqing College is located in West Mountain. The straight-line distance from Yunk Manor to there is 22.6 kilometers. With that kind of distance, it would be a miracle if the phone even connected. Yang Xia and Zhou Qi suddenly understood. No wonder, so that's how it is. Zhang Yi looked at Yang Xia and laughed playfully, "But don't rule out the possibility that they thought you were dead and couldn't be bothered to call you." Yang Xia clenched her fists angrily. "No way. I'm an adult, after all." Zhang Yi stood up and said to the two of them, "Come to the control room." Ordinary cell phones couldn't transmit signals through the Star Cloud satellite chain, but that super server could. Yang Xia and Zhou Qi were both computer illiterate, not nearly as good as Zhang Yi. The two obediently followed Zhang Yi to the control room. Zhang Yi turned on the computer, then used the internet phone to dial Yang Xinxin's number. Soon, a buzzing sound came from the computer, as if it was receiving some kind of strong interference. "It looks like they're in a place with very unstable signal," Zhang Yi judged. After a few seconds, a soft and cute voice came from inside. "Who are you?" Upon hearing this voice, Yang Xia and Zhou Qi's faces lit up with excitement. "It's Xinxin." Yang Xia hurried over and said anxiously but happily, "Xinxin, it's your sister. Where are you now? Tell me quickly. I'll come find you right away." The voice on the other end of the phone was intermittent and there was a lot of noise. "I'm at the school cafeteria. It's dangerous. Take me away." Hearing the word danger, Zhou Qi and Yang Xia became very nervous, and a serious gleam flashed in Zhang Yi's eyes. Zhang Yi asked, "What kind of danger?" "Cat. They kill." The voice became more and more chaotic, and the sound of static made people's ears hurt. Zhang Yi frowned and was about to ask more questions when suddenly, an extremely sinister and terrifying sound came from the other end. It was not a human scream, but a shrill and long-lasting cry. The three of them broke out in a cold sweat, and Yang Xia and Zhou Qi were so scared that they turned pale and hurriedly hid in Zhang Yi's arms. Immediately afterwards, they heard chaotic shouting coming from the other end of the phone. "Run! Strange monsters!" The voices of a group of people were filled with fear and despair. The shrill sound did not stop. Zhang Yi even heard the sound of limbs being torn apart and bones being gnawed. This sound was even more terrifying than anything he had heard during his time surviving in Yuelu district. Clang. Crack. Beep. Beep. The call suddenly disconnected, leaving only the busy tone echoing anxiously. Chapter 208, 3 Mutants. The phone suddenly stopped ringing, leaving only the sound of beep beep echoing in the control room. Zhang Yi sat in his chair, his eyes slightly lowered, deep in thought. He had originally thought that it would be as simple as going somewhere to pick someone up. But now it seemed that there was more trouble involved. He was a person who didn't like trouble. At this moment, Yang Xia suddenly hugged Zhang Yi's arm nervously. Zhang Yi. Her eyes were full of pleading, and she even had tears in her eyes. Her sister's danger made her extremely anxious, and she could only beg Zhang Yi to save her. Zhang Yi looked at Yang Xia and Zhou Qi, smiled slightly and said, "Don't worry, I said I would go save her, so I will." Although things might be a little troublesome, it wasn't a difficult task for Zhang Yi at this moment. After all, he now had 2 mutants to help him. He would call Uncle Yu over to act as a tank and lead the way, Fatty Su would control the field as a mage, and Zhang Yi would stay at the rear and wait for the right moment to strike. If something went wrong, he could run away immediately. This formation was perfect. In the early stages of the apocalypse, the combination of 3 mutants could sweep away most of the territory. Moreover, he really needed a top-level computer expert right now. Hearing Zhang Yi's promise, Yang Xia and Zhou Qi were relieved. After comforting them, Zhang Yi went back to contact Uncle Yu and Fatty Su and asked them to accompany him. Uncle Yu naturally agreed. Fatty Su didn't dare to go against Zhang Yi's wishes and agreed, thinking it was just a simple search and rescue mission. Since he discovered that Yang Xinxin's current environment was dangerous, Zhang Yi didn't waste any time. He told them to get ready and leave for Tianqing College tomorrow. As for the eerie, ghostly scream he heard when he made the phone call, Zhang Yi had a pretty good idea what it was. It was either a genetically mutated mutant or some other mutated creature. Although it sounded terrifying, the fact that Yang Xinxin, a girl with paralyzed legs, had managed to survive for a month meant that it couldn't be something that 3 mutants like Zhang Yi couldn't handle. On the eve of their departure, Zhang Yi checked his weapons and equipment in his room. Since they might face mutants, they had to be more cautious than when dealing with ordinary people. He even replaced his handguns with 2 more powerful models that used armor-piercing bullets. These handguns had greater recoil, but their power was absolutely reliable. As usual, Zhang Yi prepared all the other equipment. He kept the items that were easy to carry on his person, and stored the large weapons in the dimensional space, all loaded and ready to fire at any moment. The next morning, Yang Xia and Zhou Qi got up early and prepared a hearty breakfast for Zhang Yi. Of course, Zhang Yi wouldn't take them out with him. Although the 2 women had experienced some cruel scenes, when faced with life and death, they would probably be scared stiff. They had no fighting ability and would only become a burden. Zhang Yi looked at the pile of delicious food on the table, but didn't eat much, just tasting a little of each dish. Eating too much would affect his movements, and he couldn't drink too much porridge or soup. If he had to pee urgently, he might freeze his little brother in this weather. Zhang Yi had learned his lesson before, so he didn't eat or drink too much water before going out on weekdays. Of course, if he expended too much energy, there was enough food and water in the dimensional space to replenish himself. After finishing breakfast, Zhang Yi's cell phone rang. It was Fatty Su calling. He picked up the phone and answered, "Hello. Brother Zhang, I've crossed the river. I'm waiting for you by the side of the road." Fatty Su knew that there were traps near Zhang Yi's house, so he didn't dare to come over. Even now, his 2nd brother, 4th brother, and 6th grandfather were still buried under the snow. "Wait for me a moment, I'll be right there." Zhang Yi hung up the phone and said to Yang Xia and Zhou Qi, who were looking at him attentively, "I have to go. While I'm gone, go to the basement to stay safe." Yang Xia asked foolishly, "Why go to the basement? Isn't this house safe?" Zhou Qi pulled her clothes and said, "Just go." Zhou Qi knew Zhang Yi too well and understood his intentions. The information came from Yang Xia and Zhou Qi, and the person they were rescuing was their younger sister. So it was possible that this was a trap they had set up together to deliberately deceive Zhang Yi. Although this possibility was negligible from all angles, Zhang Yi never believed in probability. he only believed in himself. Yang Xia felt puzzled, but she still followed Zhang Yi and Zhou Qi to the basement. Zhang Yi locked them both in separate alloy rooms and locked the doors with his highest authority key. Before he returned, no one could open the doors and let them out. This way, even if someone breaks in, they won't be able to threaten your safety, Zhang Yi said with a smile. He left them enough food and water before he left, and there were separate bathrooms, so they didn't have to worry about personal hygiene. Zhou Qi smiled gently and said, "Okay, thank you, Zhang Yi. We'll wait for you to come back." Yang Xia probably knew what was going on at this point. Although she felt a little uncomfortable being suspected, Zhang Yi was going to rescue her sister, so she wasn't angry. "Zhang Yi, you must bring Xinxin back safely." Yang Xia put her hands together and prayed nervously. Zhang Yi rubbed his nose and smiled, "As long as she's safe when I get there, I'll definitely bring her back to you unharmed." After getting Zhang Yi's promise, Yang Xia patted her chest, which was about to burst, and breathed a long sigh of relief. She blew a kiss to Zhang Yi and said, "When you come back, I'll serve you well." Zhang Yi gritted his teeth and said, "Just wash your butt and wait for me." "What? My butt?" Yang Xia was shocked and subconsciously covered her pert buttocks with both hands and backed away step by step. Zhang Yi left with a big smile. Yang Xia shyly bit her lip and muttered, "That's going to be my first time. I heard it hurts a lot." But Zhang Yi really helped her save her sister, so she couldn't refuse to reward Zhang Yi once. After all, there's a first time for everything, and flowers always bloom more vibrantly the more they bloom. Zhang Yi locked the two women in the alloy room, walked out of the house, and let out a long breath. If possible, he didn't want to have to be wary of even the people closest to him. But given the current situation, if he wanted to live a peaceful life, he had to be cautious in everything he did and not let his guard down for a moment. Besides, the underground room was very comfortable and warm, and he had left plenty of food, so they would be more comfortable than Zhang Yi, who was out there taking risks. Once Zhang Yi thought of this, he didn't think there was anything wrong with what he was doing. Chapter 209, Tianqin College. Zhang Yi arrived at the road by the river. Fatty Su was wrapped up tightly, his hands in his pockets, stamping his feet to keep warm. When he saw Zhang Yi, he immediately waved affectionately, "Brother Zhang, I'm here." Zhang Yi walked over and said to him, "Didn't I tell you to meet here at 9 o'clock in the morning? Look at the time." Fatty Su scratched his head and smiled foolishly, "I was afraid I would be late and delay your business, Brother Zhang." Zhang Yi was a little helpless with this fat guy. He reached out and took the snowmobile out of the dimensional space, opened the door and said to him, "Get in, it's too cold outside." Fatty Su happily sat in the passenger seat, and Zhang Yi turned on the heater in the car. With the outside temperature, turning on the heater would consume a lot of fuel. However, now that Zhang Yi had Fatty Su as his capable assistant, it would be easy to get fuel in the future, so there was no need to be stingy. As soon as the air conditioning was turned on, Fatty Su felt much more relaxed. He thought to himself, "Brother Zhang is so good to me. He's afraid I'll freeze, so he turned on the air conditioning just for me. Woo woo woo, I'm so touched. Brother Zhang, where are we going today?" Zhang Yi said lightly, "To a school, to save someone." "Save someone? Oh, I see. It must be someone very important to you, like a relative or friend, right?" Fatty Su looked very serious. Zhang Yi curled his lips slightly and said, "Someone very important? Something like that." He really needed Yang Xinxin's computer skills right now. Fatty Su was moved for a moment, but then his chatty nature kicked in again. He chattered endlessly in Zhang Yi's ear, wanting to tell him everything about his life from childhood to adulthood. Zhang Yi was quite speechless. Now that they had met, he couldn't even use artificial intelligence to get rid of Fatty Su. He didn't have the heart to put in earplugs, so he could only try his best to let Fatty Su's words go in one ear and out the other. "Su Lily from our village, I'm not bragging, but she's definitely had a crush on me for a long time. Every time she looks at me, it's different from how she looks at other people. Oh, and she even came over to thank me. Hey, girls these days are so shy. If they like me, they should just say so. Why be embarrassed? Zhang Yi's forehead was covered with black lines. If he didn't need him for something else, he would have kicked him out of the car. Right, how do the people in your village feel about me now? Zhang Yi deliberately asked this question. Sure enough, Fatty Su stopped talking abruptly, and his expression became strange. Ah. This. Did he even need to ask? Zhang Yi had killed or crippled half the men in their village. There was no way those people would be grateful to him. If it weren't for their fear of Zhang Yi's strength, they would definitely want revenge. Fatty Su couldn't bring himself to say those words. But Zhang Yi gained some temporary peace. The two waited in the car, and before long, a black snowmobile appeared on the other side of the road. He's here, Zhang Yi said. Fatty Su also curiously raised his head and looked ahead. Soon, Uncle Yu drove the car close. Zhang Yi, long time no see. Uncle Yu was very happy to see Zhang Yi and walked over cheerfully to greet him. When Zhang Yi saw Uncle Yu, his eyes also showed admiration. Uncle Yu's ability was physical enhancement, which allowed him to strengthen his physique and increase cell activity. Therefore, his physical strength was particularly powerful, and his self-healing ability far exceeded that of ordinary people. This was standard tank front row material. Moreover, after not seeing him for many days, his physique had become even more robust than before. Even through his thick clothes, one could see his strong physique. Long time no see, Uncle Yu. You look good. Uncle Yu raised his arms with some pride. That's right. I feel 10 years younger now, like a young man in his 30s, with my physical strength and energy at their peak. Zhang Yi raised his eyebrows and smiled ambiguously at him. Mainly your energy, right? I have both. After the two exchanged pleasantries, Zhang Yi introduced Fatty Su to Uncle Yu. This is Fatty Su. Su Chunlei, an ice ability user. He can manipulate ice and snow. This is Uncle Yu Jiguang, a physical enhancement ability user and a respected veteran. Fatty Su greeted Uncle Yu, and they were now acquainted. However, both of them were puzzled. Were all three people present mutants? This was only the beginning of the apocalypse, and those who had awakened were extremely rare. What were the odds of three of them gathering at once? Uncle Yu couldn't hide his thoughts and asked Zhang Yi with his arms crossed, Zhang Yi, what are we doing this time that we need all three of us to go? Fatty Su was also full of curiosity. With three mutants working together, I'm afraid our opponent is no small fry. Zhang Yi waved his hand. It's not as complicated as you think. We're just going to a school to rescue a female student. A female student? Uncle Yu and Fatty Su's eyes lit up. What year is she in? What grade is she in? Zhang Yi glared fiercely at Fatty Su. Control your otaku tendencies. Fatty Su innocently covered his mouth. Zhang Yi said, she's my girlfriend's younger sister. We just found her whereabouts. She's at a school more than 20 kilometers away. I noticed something unusual in that area. It might be a mutant creature. I called you guys for safety reasons. Uncle Yu nodded. But Fatty Su sensed something was wrong from Zhang Yi's words. Mutant creatures? Not mutants? Zhang Yi laughed coldly. Who says only humans can mutate? Humans can mutate, and any cellular organism can mutate. Uncle Yu asked curiously, do you know what it is? Zhang Yi shook his head. I don't know either. Tianhai City has a wide variety of species, with so many people keeping pets, and the seafood market has sea fish, shrimp, and crabs. Who knows what kind of creature mutated into a monster? Of course, it could also be a human. But if it's a human, they must have gone crazy. Zhang Yi thought of that creepy voice, which definitely couldn't have come from a normal human vocal cord. Uncle Yu laughed. It doesn't matter. No matter what it is, the three of us can take care of it, right? Zhang Yi nodded. That's what I mean. With the three of us working together, nothing can harm us. Uncle Yu nodded. Then what are we waiting for? Let's go. Okay, let's go. Zhang Yi and Fatty Sue got on the snowmobile, while Uncle Yu rode the vehicle Zhang Yi had given him. Zhang Yi turned on the smart navigation on his cell phone and located Tianqin College. The nebula star system in the sky was still working, so it was still possible to determine their location. Even if there was some error, it would still be pretty accurate. After locating their destination, Zhang Yi started the car and drove towards Tianqin College, with Uncle Yu riding his snowmobile alongside them. Chapter 210, Survivors. A few days ago. The former site of Tianqin College. Heavy snow had covered the entire campus. Except for a few clock towers and the pointed roofs of tall buildings emerging from the snow, this top-tier elite school covering an area of 2,000 acres had completely disappeared from the ground. It was hard to believe that anyone could still be alive in this once bustling campus now covered in snow. This was thanks to the sturdy construction of Tianqin College and the huge amount of money that had been invested in its construction. After all, the children who attended this school were the children of officials and wealthy businessmen. The schools they built for their children were 100 times better than public schools. At this moment, a group of students were still taking refuge in one of the school's gymnasiums. Beneath the snow, the air was thin, and the terrifying events of the past few days had left everyone exhausted. They huddled together in small groups, their faces haggard and anxious. The teacher who had been taking care of them had gone to the warehouse to find food, leaving them there to rest. In a corner of the gymnasium, a long-haired girl sat in a wheelchair, staring blankly at the basketball court floor. Her skin was an unhealthy white, even paler than the snow outside. Her slender figure seemed as if a gust of wind could blow her over, so delicate and fragile. But under that long black hair was a stunningly beautiful face. It was delicate and petite, no bigger than the palm of a hand, and looked about 60% like Yang Xia, but with a completely different style. Yang Xia's face always had a stubborn and self-reliant look. But the softness and helplessness on her face would definitely make every man want to protect her. In a word, she was an absolutely helpless girl, as beautiful as a flower that could wither at any moment. She is Yang Xia's cousin, Yang Xinxin. But at this moment, this talented hacker girl seemed a little lonely. She only had one longtime friend by her side. The other students kept their distance from them, unwilling to have anything to do with them. They even looked at Yang Xinxin with disgust. It wasn't because Yang Xinxin had done anything wrong. It was simply because she was disabled and still alive. Now everyone was on edge, not knowing when the terrifying creatures lurking in the shadows would appear. Having a cripple around was like having an extra burden. Unfortunately, their teacher was someone who placed great importance on professional ethics, and every time they encountered danger, he insisted on taking her with them. At first, no one had any complaints about Yang Xinxin. On the contrary, they cared for her and looked after her. However, as more and more people died, their numbers dwindled from over 100 to just over 40, and everyone's mindset underwent a twisted change. Yang Xinxin, who could only sit in a wheelchair, was treated as a burden even though she did nothing wrong. Some people even blamed Yang Xinxin for the deaths of their friends. Everyone else is dead. Why are you, a cripple, still alive? Could it be that your existence is what killed everyone else? When faced with the prospect of death, humans either burst into rare acts of kindness or unleash the evil hidden deep within their hearts. The latter is easier because hatred is easier to learn than forgiveness. This evil twisted their hearts. Under the pressure of death, people always need to find ways to release their negative emotions. If they can get pleasure from bullying the weak, they are happy to indulge in this evil at a time when their lives are in danger. The strong draw their swords in anger against those who are stronger, and the weak draw their swords in anger against those who are weaker. Breathing thin oxygen, the students in the gymnasium did not have the strength to move. Everyone leaned against the wall or sat on the gymnastics mats and began to discuss. A young girl slowly spoke up, "Do you think we can still survive?" Hearing this, several girls around her showed fear and helplessness on their exhausted faces. Another girl hugged her knees tightly and said tremblingly, "We must survive. We must. But so many people have already died." Li Huimin, Yuan Sisi, Zhao Huan, Tong Xia. As each name was read out, everyone's hearts felt cold. They were all their former classmates, whom they had watched die right before their eyes. Just then, a girl with wavy hair glanced at Yang Xinxin in the wheelchair. For no apparent reason, a strong sense of disgust rose from her heart. So many people are dead, why is this disabled person still alive? Once this topic was brought up, it was difficult to stop. It was as if everyone had found an outlet for their emotions, and they all looked at Yang Xinxin with angry eyes. We have to take her with us every time we escape. It's so troublesome. Mr. Liang, just let her feed the monsters. Yeah, what's the point of her? In her condition, she'll probably die of illness one day. I think she's a bad luck charm. She won't die herself, but she keeps dragging us down. The girls' expressions gradually became distorted, with a perverse pleasure in their distortion. Criticizing Yang Xinxin gave them a sense of pleasure in their despair. As long as they could shift all the blame onto Yang Xinxin, everything would be fine. It was as if Yang Xinxin's death would mean that they could all live. Or perhaps they were simply releasing their own malice and fear. Once someone brought up the topic, those around them were also affected. I think she's a burden too. If she died, wouldn't everyone have it easier? If she dies, the monsters won't spare us. But if there's a next time, let's throw her down to lure the monsters, okay? At least her sacrifice would be meaningful. It's already like this, so why is she still struggling? Even if she survives, she'll just be useless. The girls' discussion became more and more unrestrained. Their voices gradually grew louder, and finally their expressions became twisted and crazed. On the boys' side, some were also discussing the necessity of protecting Yang Xinxin. We've protected her long enough, haven't we done enough? A boy with a flat top frowned and said, how about we leave her behind next time? At this moment, a boy with a fancy hairstyle leaning against the wall said helplessly, what's the point of us talking? Ms. Liang can't bear to leave anyone behind every time. What's the result? More and more people are dying. He was the class leader of this class and his name was Wu Qingyu. Just at that moment, among the people who had started discussing Yang Xinxin, a girl with a ponytail suddenly stood up. With a strange smile on her face and her hands behind her back, she walked step by step to Yang Xinxin. Yang Xinxin raised her head, a little afraid to look at her. Zhang Mingning. Zhang Mingning walked up to Yang Xinxin and looked down at her from above. Her gaze slowly became malicious, then she bent down and said to Yang Xinxin, please just die already, okay? You're completely useless now, you're so disgusting.